Alright, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. So this undercard has got me excited, almost more excited than the main event, which I am looking forward to. But this undercard is something that's missing in boxing a little bit. You know, these are competitive fights. I think they're fairly important fights. You got Jesus Ramos, I think, is a boogeyman of the 154, taking on Ramos Lubin. It's a really good fight. Lubin's never shy from, you know, facing the really or the best fighters in the division, to be honest. Then you've got comeback Dennis Ugas against Mario Barrios, who's, you know, always in the mix, always puts up a good fight. That's a competitive fight. Then you've got a prospect, Southpaw Elijah Garcia, in with his toughest fight against Resendiz. Apologies for the mispronunciation. He's coming off of a good win against Jared Hurd. He stopped Hurd. He's tough. That'll be Garcia's toughest fight. Another competitive fight, I think. Let's talk about it.
Boxing.
Okay, thank you for tuning in. Shout out to all the subscribers and shout out to anybody new locked in. Welcome along. So yes, this is for me a really good undercard. All right, it's got me, like I said, it's got me excited. Not just, you know, there's some names on there, but it's the fights. We want competitive fights in boxing, and I think we're going to get all three of these are going to be quite competitive. And obviously, look, Charlo's fighting Canelo. Huge card, huge fight. I mean, it's always a huge fight when Canelo's involved. So this is probably the biggest stage that you're going to get. And usually, quite often, more often than not, we get disappointed undercards, either one-sided or, you know, there's just not a lack of talent on there maybe, or, you know, for whatever reason, it you know, it doesn't quite hit the mark. But for this fight, I think this one does. Let's talk about these fights. Let's start with Jesus Ramos against I forgot who he's fighting. Ramos Lubin. Okay, now look, Ramos Lubin, you've got to give him credit. Okay, he's coming off a win against Luis Arias. I would have expected him to win that fight. And look, Lubin always, look, what you got to love about a fighter like Lubin, he'll get stopped, he'll go straight back to the gym, and he'll come back and put himself in a tough situation. Got stopped again in a brutal fight. His face looked brutal after that Fundora loss, and he had some success in that. And for me, that could be his you know, the blueprint on how not to fight Ramos, because he lost his mind a little. No, he didn't lose his mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was boxing a little bit and he was being successful, and then when he started to fight, you know, he's fighting a much bigger man, and Ramos is you know, bigger in stature. Ramos is a huge guy. He's a beast. Southpaw, just a giant Mexican dude who walks you down, throws combinations. I mean, he is a tough night's work. Just ask Brian Mendoza. He beat Brian Mendoza, and in all fairness, Brian Mendoza probably should have been docked a few points because he was excessively holding. You know, there's clinching and holding in boxing, but then there's doing it excessively, and he was almost on Klitschko level, Brian Mendoza, in that fight. So, and Mendoza's a terrific boxer. You know, he's got some skills, and even he couldn't keep Ramos off of him, really. And he's got a bit of power too. So Lord knows how Rubin's going to keep him off him, but I think Lubin will have his chance. He's got some skills, and he's got a good experience at this point. He really believes in himself. The question is how long for, and can he sustain that? You know, because the minute he starts to bang with Ramos, I mean, he's just good. He's a much smaller guy. You know, I don't think he's got enough power to keep Ramos that honest. You know, I've barely seen Ramos hurt. I haven't watched all of his fights, but he's taken some big shots, and he just walks through them, and it's just psychologically draining when you have a bigger man walking you down. You know, the ring seems a lot smaller. But Lubin, you know, he's got some skills. Like I said, he sticks to his boxing. He's got an opportunity to you know, I guess he'd probably be the underdog. I haven't looked at the odds, but I would favour Ramos in this, just based off of Lubin's already losing to a much bigger guy, and I know Fundora, well, I mean, he's a pressure fighter too, a big, tall, gangly pressure fighter. Ramos isn't too different to that. So I'm favouring Ramos. I'd expect Ramos to stop Lubin in the mid to late rounds probably. Because Lubin, honestly, like, the thing about him as well, he almost can't help himself in a fight, you know, because he kind of loves it to a degree. He can't help himself, and that's where things will go wrong. So, on to the next one. So, this is a comeback fight for Yordenis Ugas. So, we don't know how he's going to be, or how he's going to look, or feel, or fight, you know. It's always a question mark. So, I think it's an interesting fight for him to come back against Mario Barrios. We know him. He is just coming off a win. What's that guy's name? Santiago. But then before that, he fought Keith Thurman. It's his third fight at welterweight now. He's always comes to fight. And, you know, he always comes to win. And that's, you know, unfortunately, not every boxer does. And but this is why I was so excited about this card, because when you have these spirits in there that want to win, like Ugas, like Ramos, like Lubin, like what's his name? God, my memory is so bad. What is his name? Mario Barrios. This is why I'm more excited, because, you know, they don't stop trying to win, and they've got skills, and they've been in there, they've got experience, and this is a big fight for both of them, Ugas and Barrios. You know, winner. If Barrios gets a scalp over Ugas, you know, he's on to much bigger things. You know, I like Mario Barrios. He really embraces his Aztec culture, and I love it. He's always comes across really well in interviews, and he always fights. He fights hard. He's got a spirit. Do you know what I mean? So does Ugas. Took a beating against Spence, but we'll see how, you know, see how he comes back. That's always a good sign. He's straight back in there, and it's nice to see them both doing it. So that leaves us with the last fight, and that is this kid Elijah Garcia. Now, a lot of people are high on him, or they've been pushing him at PBC. I'll be honest, I'm not overly impressed, although he's getting the job done. He's got a bit of power. He's southpaw, but you know, I'm not impressed. I'm like, yeah, he can fight, but like, usually with a touted prospect, I was kind of expecting a bit more. I think he lacks a bit of snap on his punches for me, but he's still young. Do you know what I mean? So this is going to be a tough test for him. Resendiz, I forgot the guy's name. What's it? Sorry, he just beat Jared Hurd. He's got a tremendous chin on him and a tremendous will. Again, this goes into the whole premise of this video, is like, these fighters all have a lot of will, and they all come to win, and they are going to put on a show. Mexican pressure fighter, can fight in the pocket, fought Jared Hurd in the pocket, stopped Jared Hurd. I mean, Jared Hurd's lip, I think it was awful. It was all, I'll put it up on the screen. If you're a bit squeamish, maybe you might want to look away, because that was awful. I remember it being quite bad. But this will be a tough test for Garcia. I think this will be his toughest test. And like I said, Resendiz, he has got a beard on him. And why that's important is, like, later on in the fight, if Garcia's power, or, you know, his inexperience, it's still got this guy in front of him, and he still can't get rid of him, and he's tiring, and he's trying to try harder to hurt this guy. What's going to happen in the later rounds? That's my question. And he's going to be tested, I think, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he's going to deal with this, because he's used to coming forward and putting a bit of pressure on. He reminds me very similar, very slightly, of Belenga. I know he's a southpaw, but the way he comes forward, the way he looks and fights, he has similar characteristics to Belenga. Not all the way. I've just seen a couple of fights, and I'm like, he's got some rhythm and energy about him, the way Belenga fights. He's not as powerful as a puncher, at least not yet, but he has some similarities, let's say. But he'll be tested, and all these fights, they'll be tested, and that's why the winner goes on. It'll be a worthy winner, and they'll be rewarded, and it's great. And that's why I'm very excited for this card. And that is it from me today. Let me know what your thoughts are on this card, and obviously, I think it's great for boxing to get an undercard that is all fights, and not only, you know, meaningful per se, particularly the first two I spoke about, Not that they're not meaningful for Garcia, because but we just don't know him as much yet. But they'll be competitive and they'll be spirited, and I love that. Here comes the train. But look, I've got loads of videos coming. Shout out to all the new subscribers. Thank you so much, man. My gratitude could not be higher. I've got so many videos on the way, as I just mentioned. And I just put a footwork video out for any beginners that are watching, that are tuned in for that. I've got a Subriel Matias little highlight reel out, hopefully later tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. I've got this one out. I don't know. I'm going to try to get this out today. And then I'm just going to be banging out videos from there on. And I'm really going to go for it. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a lovely week. I hope the weather is as beautiful where you are as it is here, because like I keep saying, the summer's been a bit of a dead one. But hopefully we'll get a bit of a nice end to it, because who doesn't love the sunshine? Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Take care.